A lot of people think we have a soul. Uh, one day I was talking to a friend, and I said to him, "We don't have a soul." And he was so surprised that he couldn't understand what I was saying. He said, "So if we don't have a soul, how do we move? How do we get up in the morning? How do we eat? How do we walk?" You know, um, I I've been told since I was a child that we have a soul, we have a spirit, because the Bible's the Bible tells you so, right? Uh, for example, the Bible does affirm that humans have a soul, and it speaks about the soul in many different ways. Sometimes as the essence of life, sometimes as the seat of emotions and will, and often as something that can be saved, lost, or renewed. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says, "Then the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul." And this suggests that the soul is what animates the body, is the breath of life from God. In Ezekiel's chapter 18, verse 4 says, "Behold, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father as well as the soul of the Son is mine. The soul who sins shall die." This shows that the soul is accountable to God and has moral agency. In Matthew chapter 26, verse 38, Jesus said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." This reflects that even Jesus, being fully man, fully human, had a soul capable of deep emotion. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 9 says, "Obtaining as the outcome of your faith the salvation of your souls." This emphasizes the soul's eternal significance and its need for salvation. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7 says, "Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it." This verse distinguishes between the body and the spirit soul, suggesting a continued existence beyond physical death. The Bible describes the soul as the core of a person being, capable of thought, emotion, and will, immortal, or at least spiritually enduring. The Bible talks about the soul. Talk about the soul and the spirit. So, is what animates us. Is what when God made man, He made it from clay, and is the soul that makes us move, think, etc. And when we think about the soul, we don't think about we think about as a separate entity, Uh, we think our soul and our body, right? The duality of the being. We have a soul, we have a body. The other day I was watching an interview in Stephen Colbert show, the Late Show. He was interviewing Jamie Lee Curtis. So, and she said that she has never seen herself as an artist. She always seen actor. And then he pointed to a musician and says, "But we're artists, like the musician over there. His soul comes out of his instrument, and we as an artist, our soul expresses our art and stuff like that." But she forgot about the mind, about the brain, right? Because I consider myself an artist, but I believe that my creativity comes from the brain. If I didn't have a brain, I wouldn't have creativity, right? So the mind, the brain, is what makes me creative, right? Or what makes a person creative. There are two neuroscientists, a husband and a wife. They are Dr. Churchlands. The husband's name is Dr. Paul Churchland, a prominent philosopher of mind and neuroscience. And he rejects the traditional concept of soul as something immaterial or separate from the body. He is known for advocating eliminative materialism, a theory that argues mental states like belief, desires, and even the soul are not real entities, but rather outdated concepts from folks' psychology. Dr. Churchland's view on the soul is that we call the soul, what we call the soul is better understood as neuroprocesses in the brain. There is no separate non-physical entity that survives death. He believes that mental states are brain states. Everything we think, feel, or experience is the result of neural activity. He opposes the idea of common in religion and Descartes' philosophy that the mind or soul exists independently of the body. His book, The Engine of Reason, the seat of the soul, uses the word soul metaphorically. He explores how the brain gives rise to consciousness and reasoning and an identity, but not in the mystical or spiritual sense. One quote of Paul Churchland, Dr. Paul Churchland, is that the basic unit of human understanding is not a belief or desire, but the activation of a large population of neurons in the brain. So in Churchland says, we do not have a soul in the traditional religious or metaphysical sense. Patricia Churchland, like her husband Paul Churchland, rejects the traditional notion of the soul as an immaterial, immortal essence. She is a leading figure in neurophilosophy, and her work focuses on how brain science reshapes our understanding of consciousness and identity and morality. Georgian view on the soul is uh, in her book Touching a Nerve, the Self as a Brain. She argues that she sees concepts like soul, spirit, free will, and morality not as metaphysical truth, but Churchland emphasizes that the self is the brain, not something separate or spiritual. Consciousness, emotions, and moral reasoning arise from neural networks, not from the soul. What is her philosophical stance? Eliminative materialism. She supports the idea that many traditional psychological concepts like soul or belief may be replaced by more accurate neuroscientific terms. Empirical grounding, her philosophy is deeply rooted in biological neuroscience and evolutionary theory rather than metaphysical theory. Some of her books are Touching a Nerve, the Self as Brain, Brain Trust, What Neuroscience Tells About Morality, Neuro-philosophy, Towards a United Science of the Mind Brain. So Patricia Churchland doesn't believe in a soul in the religious or metaphysical sense. For her, the soul is a poetic way of referring to the complex workings of the brain. This is what I was telling you about Jamie Lee Curtis, that she says that as an artist, her soul expresses her creativity, and like the musician, the soul comes through the instrument, and yeah, in Churchland says that is a poetic way of saying that complex workings of the brain are at, at busy working, right? uh, yeah, that's all I have about the brain. I mean, about the soul, about the soul, about the brain. What do you think? Do you think we have a soul, or do you think we confuse the soul with the mind, for example? In yeah, I see the mind as the uh, brain processes. It's like a virtual reality in a computer, for example. That space that you cannot touch, your thoughts, your mental processes. See, that's at the mind, and I guess we confuse the soul and the mind. What do you think? I would like to read what you think about the topic. Please leave me a comment, subscribe, and give me a like. Thanks for watching.